Welcome back to TBRD. Today on Throttle Back Rubber Down, I'm going to get into some more detail about my recent recall service on this 2020 S1000XR. I've had some questions about that, so we're going to get into some details on what all was done at the dealership last Thursday. And I'm also going to follow up on the stalling issue. Both of those things, the recall work and the stalling issue, I went into some detail in my last video, which you can see posted up above. So we're going to get into both of those topics today and hopefully be able to answer the questions folks have on both topics. The stalling issue, which I talked about in the last video and actually showed a montage of the bike stalling, as predicted, the technician was not able to replicate the stalling, and that is no surprise to me, as this bike has not stalled probably in the last month and a half in those circumstances. If you didn't get a chance to watch my last video, what I was talking about when I showed was that this bike would stall frequently when slowing down, third and second gear primarily, when you just pulled the clutch all the way in. Now you could work around this if you would slowly pull it into the friction zone and then kind of engage it fully, but it's a real nuisance and definitely a safety issue. I had it happen a time or two heading into an intersection, and if you're not expecting it, it'll kind of really catch you out, and frankly shouldn't be happening. I suspected and still suspect that it was a fuel mapping issue that possibly would sort itself out when the bike was fully broken in. Now I've got about 3,000 miles on the bike, and it could be the case that it just sorted itself out, but I have another suspicion that goes along with that fuel mapping issue. And when I posted the video, I got quite a few comments from some other riders and owners of this bike who said, yeah, me too, I'm having the same sort of thing happen. And Clawbass posted a comment on my YouTube channel which goes right along with my fuel mapping hypothesis, and basically was saying, you know, when it is very hot out, because I'm curious to see, this stopped about a month and a half ago, but also a month and a half ago, while I got a couple of thousand miles on the bike, the temperature dropped. So that kind of goes along with my fuel mapping suspicion, which would be when it gets really hot out, the air is less dense. And we all know that internal combustion engine needs three things basically, right, to run. It needs a spark, it needs fuel, and it needs air. So when the air is less dense and it's very hot and humid, if you're at a lower engine speed, as I was pretty much in all these situations, third and a second, slowing down, lower engine speed, I think it's getting choked out, that it's not getting enough oxygen, which I do think is, you know, long-term kind of a fuel mapping issue. So we'll have to wait until next summer when it gets properly hot again to see if the issue resurfaces. If it does, I don't think it's going to be a very difficult fix. It certainly sounds like from the comments that I'm not the only one who's experiencing this. So, you know, I think a little adjustment should be all that is necessary if it does in fact return. The Bob's BMW's got it noted in my service logs, so if it does resurface, there'll be a record of that, and as you can see from my last video, I've got some footage of it, and if it starts happening again, I'll probably shoot another montage. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with the stalling issue. I mean, at this point it's sorted, and we'll see if it returns. As far as the warranty recall work, I'm going to link down in the description of this video. I called the service shop back at Bob's after I got my work done. The shop manager explained everything to me. I had a couple of questions on my last video, and I wanted to be able to follow up for anybody who is watching this video with some details. So in the description of this video, I had the service technician send me the Q&A that was direct from BMW, so I'm going to post that below so you'll be able to read that, and I'm going to kind of go over what I recall from memory about the work that was done as we ride along here. I think maybe today we'll head up to the Conowingo Dam to get a couple of cool views in, and I'll talk about that recall work on the way. So the first thing that they did was there was an issue with the ABS, a bolt on the ABS pressure modulator, and the issue there was they had installed an extra bolt onto the ABS pressure modulator, and at high engine speeds it could cause a vibration that would ultimately potentially lead to some damage occurring to the components. So to rectify this, what they recommend is that you remove that extra bolt and install a plastic rivet in its place. So that was the work that was done on the pressure modulator. So the ABS, there was an extra bolt put on the ABS pressure modulator, and that takes care of that recall. I hadn't noticed anything, but always good to get that done so that there's no damage. Another one that was, there was three recalls performed when I was down there, and I was only aware of the one, which was the front brake caliper. I'll get to that last. The other one that I wasn't aware of is the main wiring harness had a recall on it. Very simple, really, but it was recalled because they were concerned with the main wire harness chafing against the honeycomb structure of the frame. And if that were to occur, it could potentially damage the wiring harness. And I believe what they said was that the lead that goes to the instrument cluster could be damaged, so that when you hit the ignition button, essentially the display would not come on. So to fix that, in short, as my tech told me, basically some zip ties and some insulation on the wiring. But as they said, BMW branded zip ties, right? Haha. But a real simple fix that could probably save quite a headache for a rider or two down the road. So that was the wiring harness recall work that was done. And then the final of the three, we'll get to that as soon as we zip through these turns. Whee! Alright, I put a new camera down front and I've got it mounted kind of low, so just curious if it's going to get knocked off if I really lean it over, but we weren't too aggressive there. Anyways, getting back to the final recall work that I was aware of and why I set the appointment up was the front brake caliper. And as I explained in the last video, apparently the front brake caliper, while stationary and parked, has the potential to leak some brake fluid. And aside from the obvious problem of having brake fluid leaking on your wheel and whatnot, you're going to lose enough fluid if that happens in your reservoir that you're going to lose the ability to use your front brake. So what they do in that case is they're really just doing a visual inspection to see if there's any staining or fluid leaking out. If there is not, you are good to go. If there is, they need to replace the caliper, and keep in mind anytime they're replacing the caliper, they need to be replaced as a set. If that's necessary, at least in my case, they were going to have to order the parts, so that would have set me back a little bit in terms of time for those to get shipped over from wherever they might have had to get those from. Thankfully, I didn't have an issue on my machine. They didn't need to be replaced, so that was good. So that wasn't necessary. So that's pretty much the details on the three recalls. We are going to keep heading down the road here, and just a short few minutes arrive at the Conowingo Hydroelectric Dam. So I'll have you take a look at that in just a second here. We'll zip right down the road. Alright, we are getting close here. I used to live out in Conowingo, and I would cross the dam many times. Interestingly enough, you gotta, to get down to the dam, you come through the Harford County, Maryland side, and you'll come all the way down this hill, and then we will get to the dam itself, which is owned by Exelon. There's a great, if you're into fishing, some great fishing down here. You've got this brackish water because of the Chesapeake Bay, and this is the Susquehanna River that's dammed up, and it's just right at the top, just, I don't know how, probably less than a mile upstream from the top of the bay. Where I live, in Havre de Grace, you are literally sitting on the top of the Chesapeake Bay, where the Susquehanna, at the confluence, as they say, of the Susquehanna River and the Chesapeake Bay. So just upstream here is the Conowingo hydroelectric dam, which we are about to sneak up to. Alright, here we come down to the river. I haven't been down here in a very long time. Always pretty. Tons of bald eagles and osprey. If you're into birding, it's a great place. Catch some large birds of prey on camera. I'll have to head back here at some point and we'll do a history of the Conowingo Dam for anybody who might be interested. It does have a pretty cool history. Anytime you come down here, you'll always see lots of folks with their binoculars and cameras. So as I said, you can see there's some bald eagles out there just sitting on the branch. Growing up, you never used to see bald eagles. Now they're, at least down here, they're everywhere. So you'll see all sorts of folks who are real interested in birding with some large camera glass. Alright. We are gonna pull in right here. This didn't used to be blocked off like this. Yeah, great place to fish though, if you're into that. I used to enjoy a lot of fishing growing up in Lake Erie. In Lake Erie. I should say growing up on the lake up in Erie, Pennsylvania. We're about 5 minutes from the lake. It's great fishing up there. But there it is. That is the Conowingo hydroelectric dam. It is owned by Exelon. I've been inside there. I used to work at the local school here in Conowingo, and you'd have a field trip that would go in there. Pretty cool. There's a great PBS documentary on the dam, about an hour long, and how it was built and some of its history. It's a pretty long dam, actually, when you take a look at it. I forget, I want to say off the top of my head, there is something like 51 spill gates in the dam. And it is a sight to see when those are all open. I think in my time living here, that's only happened once. Back in 1972, during, I think it was Hurricane Agnes, they actually had charges placed in the dam to blow it. The water was actually rolling over the top of that dam, the roadway even. That's how high it was from all the flooding. But it is a sight to see when those floodgates all are open. That water gets roaring. They have to close 222 over there on the Cecil County side down in the Port Deposit. But anyways, that is the Conowingo hydroelectric dam. Alrighty, we're heading towards home. I might have to take a detour on this beautiful day that I took off of work. That's if you're counting. 2 days in the last 2 weeks I've taken off of work. Starting to like this vacation sort of thing. Anyways, hopefully the information in this video was helpful to those of you who had some questions about the recall on this S1000XR and the stalling issue. As I like to say, until the next time, keep the throttle back, the rubber down, and enjoy the ride.